Straw Hut Media.
Hi, this is Larry Wilmore saying, don't be alone with Jay Kogan. All right? Take that any way you want.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogan.
Hello and welcome to Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan. I am Jay Kogan, and you are, for all intents and purposes, alone with me. Already, you're violating the basic principle of the show. But that's fine, because it's about don't be alone. It's not being alone with me. That's not the problem. Don't be alone. Don't be alone. Share some time with people, share some conversations, share some thought. And I'm here to share some thought with my good friend. Is my good friend? I like to think of him as my good friend, Larry Wilmore. We don't see each other that often, but I feel very connected to him. And that's the definition for me of a friend. So you'll be hearing a lot about what life is like for the two of us, our weird friendship, whether it's okay to say the N-word. There's lots of stuff that's going to be talked about that may be of interest to you. By the way, the answer is no. It's not okay. But it's really not about that. It's not race-based conversation so much. It's about show business, it's about growing up in California, and it's about life and how we choose to live it. Please stay tuned. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please write into dbawjk@gmail.com. Those are the questions I need from you, are not just comments about the show and questions about the show, but also questions I can read on the air with my guests, questions about your life, questions that intrigue you, thoughts, things you think are funny, things you think are important, things that are important to you. I want to get to know you, and I really do want to get to know what's going on in your life as well. So we'll be right back with my guest, who's really funny, and I love him dearly, Larry Wilmore.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogan.
Well, first of all, let me say who you are. Everybody knows who you are, but you are an actor, you're a comedian, a comic, you're a creator of many writing things. You've won a Peabody Award?
Peabody,
Right?
Emmy.
Booker Prize?
Lots of different.
Right? Didn't you win the Booker Prize?
I don't know what that is.
For novels? The great novel?
No?
Okay.
No, never won that.
All right. Nobel?
No, haven't won a Nobel Peace Prize.
But a lot of awards.
I was screwed out of the Peace Prize. That was an old Jay Leno joke.
Is that right?
From the 80s, I remember one of the first times I saw Jay live. He said, "Yeah, I just got back from Washington, D.C., where Nancy Reagan just won the Humanitarian of the Year award." Humanitarian? Well, yeah, I'm glad she beat out that conniving bitch, Mother Teresa. You know?
That's when Jay was funny. He made a decision.
He sold it better than I did.
Yeah, but he made a decision at someone when he became on the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
To sort of dumb it down a little bit.
Yeah, I'll say he broadened it out.
Okay.
That's what I'll say.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, he was as sharp as anyone. I used to see him at the Improv.
Yeah.
He was as sharp as anyone. And then when he started hosting, no longer sharp. But now you have this podcast. You're a podcast you're doing called Black on the Air.
Black on the Air, yes.
And I don't know why I've never been a guest on your podcast, Black on the Air.
I mean, look how long it's taken for me to get on yours.
Well, it's only due to your schedule. You're one of the. This is a fresh podcast.
Like, I like when people say, "Hey man, where have you been? I haven't seen you around." I said, "I've been here. I haven't seen you."
Right.
So why is it not your fault? Why is it my
true.
fault?
It's all my fault. This is my fault. I haven't been on your podcast. You're right. It is my fault, 100%.
It's both of our faults.
No,
yeah.
it's I'll take the blame. No.
Now we have gone to Dodger games together. And
Yes, that's true. Yeah. And here's the thing: we met years and years ago. I stormed into your office, I believe, on the Bernie Mac show, and because I was doing maybe Malcolm in the Middle or something at the same time.
Right.
And we must have had a mutual friend of some kind.
Yeah.
But I wanted to meet you because it was like the fact that you were doing the Bernie Mac show, which seemed to me an impossibly hard show to do.
Yeah.
A really hard show to do. The quality is super funny, super great, super smart, and Bernie being not well a lot of the time. And it's like, you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
And it was like.
And fighting the network that hated the show.
Right. And like that to me was, I had to meet the guy who's fighting the fight.
Who's going through all this.
And you weren't, when I met you, you were tired, but not nearly as exhausted as I thought you'd be.
Oh, God. That must have been a good day.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Because you were just sitting behind a desk and you were affable and friendly.
Just chilling.
And you were chilling.
Hey man, come on in.
Right. You weren't like,
come save me.
Right. You weren't freaked out about what's coming next.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that's a smooth customer. That guy has got some stuff together.
Yeah, a lot of show running is, it's really learning on the job, They don't tell you all the bad stuff.
I guess so. There's too many things to tell you. It's not possible to tell you, and it changes every single time.
Absolutely.
So if you have the Bernie Mac show is different from the PJs, which is different from Insecure. It's different.
All of it's different.
Yeah. So it's relearning every single time and just using your best guess. I have a feeling it's a lot like being a general or some kind of thing where you go in with a battle plan, but
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck.
Always fighting to stay alive too in that battlefield.
Do you feel like you've had to fight in a way that other comedians haven't because of your race?
In some ways for sure.
Yeah.
The biggest examples in when I became a writer, comedy's a little tougher. Comedy is more like sports, when they're out there in the field, there's no mistaking who's good.
Right.
When you're on that stage, there's no mistaking who's getting laughs.
Right.
Sometimes there's the politics of getting spots, like when you do the improv and that kind of stuff. My brother had a name for some of those things, which was funny.
Which was?
Well, like a lot of times we'd only get spots like at 12:30, 1 a.m. He used to call them nigga spots.
You said a version of that word to the President of the United States.
I did, yeah. But people got it wrong, People say, Larry Wilmore called Obama the N-word. I said, no, I didn't call him the N-word. Right. I didn't say, Obama, you're a nigger. No. I said, you're my nigga. You did it, my nigga.
Right.
I used the possessive form of it with the A ending, not the ER and the accusatory.
Thought it was brilliant and lovely. By the way, that whole White House Correspondents thing was fantastic. The hardest gig in all of show business,
really
I think.
Tough, yeah.
And one of the best things I've ever seen. And the fact that you said, I won't repeat the word exactly because I can't, the intonation.
Yeah.
But
I just don't want you to get canceled because I know you're cool. But
if it cancels this podcast, it's good. Then I'm good. It's worked out.
You don't have to show up.
Yeah, I don't have to show up here anymore. So that's fine.
Right.
No, I've used the N-word in never as an epithet, but always like I just used it. When somebody's saying you're naming something or calling, and one time I played a racist character who used it in an improv, and that was a little rough for a lot of people. But I don't. It's not a word I use. But it's fine. But the fact that you said that to the president in the colloquial buddy, this is my friend, oh my God, this is, and the neighborhood style, like he's not just a president, he was your president, he was my president, he was cool and great.
Yeah, it was different. I kind of call it, like in acting, there's a term called public solitude, where you're in public, but you're having, a private moment.
Right.
So that's kind of the way I saw it, where we all have ownership of public people in different ways, but some groups have just a little different type of ownership.
Right. And he completely understoed what you were saying.
Oh, completely.
100%.
He got up immediately, gave me one of those.
Yes.
It was great. And the point I was making was that, because I'm the same age as him, he's done a couple of things bigger, but whatever, But he hasn't won an Emmy. So there you go.
Fuck him. And he had a deal with Netflix or something like that.
That was part of my joke. So I'm not going around presidenting everywhere. Like, what are you?
Right.
My point was that we were born into a world where a black man couldn't even be the quarterback of a football team. Right. And those are facts, And now he's the leader of the free world. And that was a very emotional moment for me. Of course. So that's where that came from.
Yeah. I got it completely. And I thought it was warm and lovely and beautiful and bold. Yeah. And because it was all those things, people gave you shit for it.
Exactly. but now they remember it.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But there was a group of people who hated it, and it didn't matter black or white. They were like an older school, and a different group who were a little younger, different generation, who like loved it and revered it and thought it was the best thing ever. So there were few people that were kind of in the middle there. So that was kind of interesting. It was very divisive. But that's what we do as comedians.
In the greatest possible way, I would say. Yeah. Because calling someone my friend and getting shit for it is fantastic.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And they don't realize Obama, his playlist, has tons of songs that have nigga.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, wait, you guys listen to all that.
Well, it's because he talks like this all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He said it in front of white people.
Exactly.
Well, white people did a lot of saying it in front of us for a long time.
That's true. That's true. It's fascinating. The first time I ever heard the word was on the Lenny Bruce record. Lenny Bruce did a whole bit about it.
Yeah.
Did LBJ not being able to not say it was one of the things.
I remember that.
And then somewhere he said it should be used all the time.
Yeah.
And if it was used all the time, then people wouldn't, like a kid wouldn't be hurt by it.
It's just those irresponsible people who, it's like you can't have anything,
Yeah.
Some people are always going to ruin something.
But that's not what we're here to talk about. That's not my problem.
What's your problem? We have to talk about
Yeah, we
the
talk
problem.
about, this show is about me talking with really smart, interesting people about my problems. And you're here to help solve my problem.
Okay.
And my problem is what we were talking about at a party recently, a Christmas party, which is as we are getting older and still trying to be in it and do this stuff, who's still in it and still viable and exciting and we were trying to think like who's a star who's still got light in their eyes
in front of the camera
and you came up with the name and I completely agree was Eddie Murphy. You said Eddie still has that power, still has the ability, and I think that's true.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because he took a little bit of vacation and then came back to it.
But Steve Martin and Martin Short, what they're doing on Murders in the Building, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Steve Martin, they're both great.
Yeah.
I think Steve Martin's unbelievable genius.
Yeah, and he became more of an actor than strict comedian, if that's what you're talking about.
He transitioned a little bit from one of the smartest, most interesting stand-ups in the world to really trying to be a good movie actor. Yeah. And learning how to do that.
I went down the rabbit hole, the original Saturday Night Lives, because I haven't seen them in so long. And I was a kid when they were on. I was in high school. And, I didn't have VCR or any of that stuff. So if you missed an episode, you just missed it, unless it reran. And So there were a lot of episodes that I kind of missed, even though I worshiped the show and we used to talk about it on Mondays.
You weren't a fan.
And so
I'm telling you weren't a fan. If you missed the episodes, you were not a fan.
So I went back and watched them all in order, the first few seasons, and it was fascinating to watch it now, because...
What were you avoiding writing?
That's good. What was I avoiding? I'm always I'm here
I understand.
because I'm avoiding
I know,
writing.
me too.
I'm
Me too.
always avoiding
I know,
writing.
I know.
That's very true.
It's true.
Writers, we're always avoiding writing.
It's 100%
no matter what
true.
we're doing.
So you watched the whole
interests
season.
or hobbies we have? Is that?
I took you off track. You were watching the whole season.
Yeah, and it was fascinating. You're seeing how Chevy became this blazing star, and we know some of the stuff that went on behind the scenes. You can kind of see like dynamics starting to happen with people and everything. But it was either the second or third season, I can't remember. Steve Martin's first appearance.
Yes.
And it was revelatory. I almost got emotional watching it because, like you, we loved Steve Martin when we first saw him. Like it was an instant love affair because he was so funny.
Right.
And when he came out on that stage, the audience, they weren't as familiar with him. He did well, but it wasn't what he was going to be in just probably a year's time. Right. When he was skyrocketed. But I have all these memories of that, and I'm watching it, and I'm almost crying. I'm going, let's look at Steve Martin. And a lot of the things have kind of, aged. Some have not aged that well and that type of thing. Some things are interesting, and some things are still funny, But Steve Martin, still funny. And not only that, you see exactly why. He was so charismatic and he was irresistibly funny. Right. And that's what he was when he was pure comedian, Steve Martin.
And he was studied. Yeah. In other words, he had done so much work to get where that was in terms of just thinking about what comedy was. Right. And to wear the white suit and to say, comedy could be making fun of another. Right. He made comedy to make fun of himself. Yeah. And he says, I'm going to be ridiculous and to give everybody permission to laugh at me. Right. And the weirder, sillier, funnier I am in that regard, that's what and he exclusively did that. Yeah, he was the more accessible version of Albert Brooks. Yeah. Yeah. Because Albert Brooks kind of did that first, but he didn't have that persona that Steve had, and he didn't take it to that uber level of irresistibility. And Albert didn't have an act. Albert's things were one-off bits. It was all meta stuff. Yeah, it's meta, exactly. But it was more writery than it was. You would have to know show business pretty well to get Albert, but you didn't have to know anything to get. Steve took it to the next level. He made himself that.
as opposed to the bits.
So smart.
He
And
became that.
his
that
books
meta.
his books that describe
Yeah.
his process are fascinating
Yeah.
and really smart and make me feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
Which is really why I read them.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
And here's the other thing, so, because, I love watching old TV and all that stuff. So I was looking back at the Smothers Brothers.
Right.
I was doing some, voiding and
Right.
everything. And Steve Martin was a writer in that, as was Rob Reiner,
Right.
who we were talking about earlier. In fact, I think they're roommates at one point. And it's funny, Steve would appear on the show now and then. And this is really the young Steve
Right.
Martin. He's
He was
just
a hippie, Steve
yeah,
Martin.
just a writer in a show.
Yeah.
And we know what's going to happen to him.
Right.
And he's not ready yet. You see little
Right.
glimpses and that type of
Yeah.
thing, a couple of absurd things. So
Amazing.
it's funny seeing that.
What did
too.
Zweibel say to you when you said, hey, those were great, those were amazing?
Well, see, now when people come up to us and talk about shows we run, we have battle scars from those shows.
Right.
So I can immediately see the battle scars,
Right.
He's like, oh yeah, thanks, Immediately I can see he's thinking of some specific things,
Right.
and I think we talked a little bit about Chevy and just how much the drugs became an issue there.
But
It
for
was-
all of them. I mean, that was
Yeah,
a
it really did.
drug show at a drug time.
It really ruined a lot of it. It kind of corded out by the 4th season or the 5th one. It was it was when everybody pretty much had left, and people like Paul Schaefer was part of the cast,
Right.
and
Right.
and Harry Shearer, who we know is brilliant, but was not. It was just not the right thing for him at the time. It was so not funny, and it was so like just this limp imitation of itself.
Which it then
It was
continued to be
shocking.
for the next 50 years.
Well, no, they had to bring new blood in,
Right.
but to see it like that in only a few years was fascinating too.
It is amazing.
It was quick burnout.
I've watched every Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
I've watched every single one. I watched it then. I've watched it. I continue to watch it now. I've
All
watched
during
it
the 80s, you watched it?
all through the terrible,
Yeah.
terrible, terrible years and the
Yeah.
great years and everything else. There's something about that institution that strikes me as fascinating and I can't avoid.
Yeah.
And there's always something good in it, and there's always a lot of terrible stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I as a comedy nerd, I'm still that 10-year-old boy. Is like,
Yeah.
what's gonna be new and fascinating? I have to watch it.
Yeah, I watch it too. I think I'm always looking to see where they nail something,
Yes. But the overall question about me is, and not you so much, but you do. I'm going to list all the things that I think I am, and you're going to say you're much better at, much more successful at them.
I don't think
You're
so.
I consider myself an actor.
Okay.
You're an actor.
All right.
I consider myself. I've been a stand-up comic.
Yep.
You're a stand-up
I
comic.
did. Mm-hmm.
I've been a show creator,
Right.
producer, writer, and now we're
And podcaster now.
and now podcaster.
Yeah.
We're both podcasters. Trying to find my way as show business changes and my goals for what I think is possible
Yeah.
is changing, and even for what I want to, like, should I be just an elder statesman of comedy and just sit back and judge and tell people in my day, we watched Saturday Night Live and they took all these drugs
Right.
and ruined their shows. Well, or is this, should I try to morph and change with these times and wait it out to figure out where show business and content land?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know. Because I was raised in this one thing,
Yeah.
and that thing seems to be going away.
So this is more career day.
It's not career so much as just life purpose.
Life purpose.
Like,
Oh, okay.
I was 10 years old, I was
Yeah.
interested in comedy.
Yeah.
And what was your first?
You're a lifer like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first big hero in comedy, I had several growing up.
Right.
But the first really big one was Flip Wilson.
Okay.
I couldn't believe how funny he
Right.
was. Watched him every week. I'm actually developing a limited series. Flip is part of it. It was for comedians. But that's when I first just fell in love with
Right.
it. It was just unbridled love,
Right.
And I know from that moment on, that love affair has always been intense, with different
Right.
people and that kind of stuff.
Right.
with comedy, I should
Right.
say.
Did the devil make him do it?
No, Killer
Okay.
got to the devil
All right.
before the devil made him do it. Yeah.
Did you were growing
See,
up.
a lot of people don't know these references right now.
Fuck you if you don't know who Flip Wilson is.
The
Fuck you.
devil made me do it. That's the first impression that I did.
Yeah, of course,
You gotta
fantastic.
watch it.
Did you ever
Make him
see
do
the
it.
show being recorded live?
Oh no, I couldn't even. I didn't even know that was a possibility.
It was like 30 minutes from your house.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the
That world was unattained. It seemed thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
That world,
Right.
I never even knew that I'd be involved in.
should have called me.
Yeah, so
Should've
you were
called
going
me.
to Carol Burnett show.
Yeah.
all
and,
that
and
stuff.
I met
yeah.
Flip Wilson and
Yeah.
like all that stuff. Like the TV people on TV seemed attainable.
Yeah,
Seemed like okay. They also seem like real people. So, but here you're developing shows. You're working in the system that are the shows for streamers or are they for network or where they
It's a combination of things.
okay.
Yeah.
So like you're just like whoever's producing content.
Still fighting it
I'm gonna yeah. So there's no part of you that says like scratching your head saying, well, what's going on here?
In terms of what I should do,
Yeah.
well, I've always, I've thought about those things over the years, and I've shifted and that type of thing with my focus and stuff. But the general way that I look at it, like when I talk to people and have these types of conversations about showbiz, especially, is I tell them when I'm explaining my mindset, I said I never look at showbiz as something I could get something out of. Like, what am I getting from showbiz?
Right.
Is there any of that? Give me something. I look at it as something I could put something into. So I'm done when I no longer have something to offer.
Okay. Right.
So as opposed to, does it have something to offer me?
Right.
So the bargain isn't what it has to offer me. The
Right.
bargain is what I have to offer it. And is that something I'm elevating?
Right.
Is it something of value? If it doesn't, it's probably not going to interest me. So I'm not in it for fame. I'm not
Right.
in it just to this or that. I'm really in it for the contribution part of it.
Right. Well, I mean that's what I want to do. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to be contributing to cool things. I
Right.
just don't know if my idea of cool things are the idea of cool things that are
Right.
going to be bought and
So now we're dealing, and we may have had this conversation with zeitgeist.
right.
Which is a little,
Yeah.
different. And that we can't control because zeitgeist can be done with you when you're not done with it, right?
Right.
And that's a tricky thing in our business. And no one is immune from that. I'm not immune from that.
Right.
There's different expiration dates for different styles and people and that stuff,
Comedy has
them.
a weird
It can have a harsh one.
exactly.
Because all of a sudden you go, wait a second, when did this change? You
Right.
know?
Some things are funny briefly, and then
Yeah.
some things are not funny. I don't know that if Sacha Baron Cohen came out now, today, it would be as funny as when it was, or.
And it's not so much that it's not funny, it's the zeitgeist gets to tell us what gets to be celebrated.
Right.
Because, I think we may have had this conversation too, where I was saying, I was watching this interview with Mel Brooks, this is a few years ago. I think it may have been Dick Cavett. They're both old at this point,
Right.
But, and Mel Brooks for an hour completely entertained that audience.
Yeah.
There was no one looked at that and thought, this guy isn't funny.
Right.
He absolutely was funny. But could he have a show right now? Absolutely not.
Right.
The zeitgeist isn't interested in Mel
Right.
Brooks.
But
the audience certainly was. Like, he's still funny, but that's not what the zeitgeist is serving up right now.
Right, but I mean, you can also see like a concert with the Grassroots, and they're still good, but
the zeitgeist isn't interested.
right, the zeitgeist isn't interested, and fine that they were, and also there's a bit of nostalgia associated with Mel Brooks,
Right.
and with
Right.
the '60s
Now,
bands.
sometimes nostalgia gets in the zeitgeist.
Yeah,
Like that happened in a big way with like Happy Days.
yeah, for
Happy Days.
American Graffiti and Happy Days, they were celebrating 20 years before.
Right.
Yeah.
But it made it something new though still, because zeitgeist is like, look, motherfucker, this still has to feel new to me.
Right.
You can have your nostalgia, but I got to think it's new.
Right.
So
Right.
you have to kind of trick the zeitgeist.
Yeah,
and
but I
that
mean,
type of thing. Like
and-
Murders in the Building.
Yes.
Some people maybe have never heard of those guys. Oh, those old guys are funny.
Right.
Or,
A lot of people I know, my wife and I watch we really enjoy it. I know a lot of people really don't enjoy it.
yeah.
And it's like, well, what don't you enjoy? It's like, well, those old guys acting silly.
Right.
It's like, Yeah, I guess that's what it is. Those
Yeah.
old guys acting silly with, along with Selena Gomez. But it's
Yeah.
sort of like, I'm enjoying that.
Right.
And, the mysteries are silly and it's fine,
Yeah.
but it's just, it's
What do
pure
you
enjoyment.
really enjoy doing now? Like if you, the expression, if you had to choose one thing, is it writing jokes or scripts? Is it performing? Do you have something that would be number one on the thing?
I would perform under any circumstance because I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I'm not asked to do that all that often.
What type of performing?
Any performing. I will act in movies. I will do comedy when asked.
Right.
I will do. I do still do improv.
Right.
A lot, and so I'll do all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Just don't make me watch it. And I also feel bad for other people who are watching me.
Yeah.
Like ultimately, it's a completely selfish act.
Right.
It's me enjoying the process of performing
Yeah.
as opposed to worrying about whether it's entertaining or great for anyone else.
Right.
And that is, I think that comes with time and like whether you care about the audience or not. But when I'm performing, I'm completely selfish. When I'm writing, I very much care about how the audience will receive this.
Interesting. But you get more enjoyment out of performing?
Yeah, because I don't have that other worry.
Yeah.
I really don't have that other worry. I just
Right.
have to worry about, am I being true to this moment?
Right.
Am I being true in this one moment? And is this joke funny for me? Am I willing to eat shit on this joke
Right.
because it's funny for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of the time it's yes.
Is this performing for you? Like podcasts and talking to people? Do you like that?
No, it's not performing. It's conversing.
If you were doing stand-up right now, what subjects would you want to talk about?
Boy, I don't know.
Like what would be funny?
That's a good question.
Because that's a good starting point too, you know, where, because, having done stand-up as my first real big thing, I still get stand-up jokes.
Right.
They come
I have
out
a
of my
list.
head.
I write stand-up
And I
jokes
write stuff down
all day
sometimes.
long. I have
Yeah.
a list of them, and they're about my life, generally speaking. They're
Yeah.
about my age and my kids and the world at large and
Yeah.
things I see in culture and
Right.
from my perspective. I don't know that anybody else would like them, but again, I wouldn't
You
mind.
never know. It's a good exercise to put an act together.
I do.
Put together 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And go up and just do it.
Yeah.
See what people think is funny.
I would do that. I have people who are hobbyist stand-ups now these
Yeah.
days. They do.
Yeah.
They just go and do it again. And
Yeah, it takes the temperature down on it.
I guess so. But I might try that. But I'll see what I can do in terms of still making TV shows. I still like making shows and movies. I think that I enjoy having huge budgets to work with and
Yes.
making beautiful,
Right.
lovely things,
Yes.
as opposed to sort of like taking your camera out and doing guerrilla stuff yourself. And as there's part of me that still thinks that there's that. That's real show business. The real show business and fake show
Right.
business.
Right,
I'm still aiming at the real show business.
Yeah, it's a lot of the trappings that come with it. Yeah.
My improv group plays in front of 30 people. That's hobbyist.
Right.
That's not real show business.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're making a TV show, it's
Right.
got to be
It's got to be
real TV. Although
TV.
those days are getting thinner now too.
Right. Like if you get 1 million people, that's fantastic now.
Or even production, I'm talking about. Like there's less and less money.
Right. Yes.
to do
That'll
things
change.
now.
That'll change.
Yeah.
The hunger for content will still remain, and somebody will be able to figure out how to
hope so.
monetize it. And so we'll figure it out. But you're okay for now. You got Flip Wilson.
We'll see.
You got Flip Wilson. He's gold.
Yeah.
He's gold. All right. Well, you have helped me not a whit.
Well, give me another question.
No. We have to go to viewer mail.
Oh, viewer mail.
We have viewer
Okay.
mail.
All right, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So this is now time for a listener.
I did say you should try stand-up, though.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm
Okay.
going to do it. And then I'll report
Do it.
back to you.
See, there you go.
On your podcast about
Do
how it went.
I get people ask me to do it all the time, and I always have excuses why I won't. But then I've gotten up a few times, and it's been fun.
I do it. When I did it when I was a kid, I really enjoyed it, but I had no...
But you were more of an improv person, not stand-up.
No, but I did stand-up. I did
okay,
stand-up.
you did
And I
do
had those 12:30 slots.
Right,
I did it.
right.
I'm
Yeah, so you don't have to say it. You got it.
No, let me say the word. You had
No.
I had this 12:30 slots, and I was a doorman at the Improv, and I would hang out to get my slots, and I did.
Yeah.
But my persona back then was of a 55-year-old comedian.
Right.
So I
even
would
though
come out,
you're
these
younger.
kids today. I would wear a tuxedo and do
Right.
those hate the younger generation and
Right.
shit on them. So that was fun, but it was more like a sketch, less like
And people go, ha, he's not that old. He's
Right.
funny. Right.
and then I could make fun of that. But
I was like, he is that old. Why
there's
is he saying that?
there's very little authenticity to that character.
Yeah.
Even though Steve Martin, there's very little authenticity to that character. However, he
Right.
could carry it off. I couldn't sustain that character.
Yeah.
Now it's time for Listener Mail.
You're wearing the exact right suit for this question.
Oh, okay.
It's from Maynard, who says, as we get older, we inevitably have to face the reality of losing people we care about and love. How have you coped when that has occurred? And what advice would you give to others who struggle with it?
Wow, such a serious question.
I get a lot of serious questions because I also do something called Philosophy Friday on Twitter, which only handles serious things.
I love that.
And so a lot of these people, listeners, some of our viewers, listeners, are from that and ask serious questions.
That's awesome.
So that's the serious question. Now, I've lost my sister
Right.
a few years ago. You lost your brother. So we both have brutal losses
Right.
that we deal with. So
Yeah.
you go first. Tell me how you cope with the loss.
I don't know if I have. It's very, very difficult. And for me, he was my younger brother, so that makes it worse. You know, you feel a certain responsibility for your brother,
Right.
you know, in life, you know, and all that stuff. And the type of soul that he was, you know, it was very tragic for our whole family. I remember him all the
Oddly
time.
enough, my sister's death not tragic for me.
Yeah.
Weird how that happened.
I don't
We
find
didn't
that
care
odd
for her.
for you though, Jay.
Yeah,
I
we
don't find that very odd. So I guess, you know, I think you have to give yourself permission to grieve, that it's okay to grieve, because sometimes that's difficult. For me, I don't know why I had difficulty with it, you know, just really letting it go and accept that. I had this pilot that I was supposed to write, and I was writing about my family, and I couldn't do it, Jay. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I was supposed to turn it in, and for weeks and weeks, I just kept saying, sorry, and I felt guilty. I was making excuses, and finally, I had to be honest with them.
Right.
And here, you know, you're getting paid to do this. This is what we do for a living, right? It's embarrassing. And I was like, I can't write this, you know, I can't do it. And my exec was so nice. He said, Larry, don't worry about it. Let's try to do something else. If you really don't want to write that, then I immediately thought of something else. It turned out to be great. I ended up selling it. It didn't go, but I was able to channel positive energy into something rather than that sad negative energy, you know? So just turning that switch and doing that. But I don't know, my brother passed away 3 years ago. I don't know if I fully have grieved that yet. You know?
Yeah, I don't think my sister is like 7 years, and it's still a loss, but I'm not heartbroken every time I think about her.
Right, me either.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have fond memories of her still, and I recently went with her daughter and her what would have been her grandson, my niece and her son, to Disneyland, my sister's favorite place. That was her favorite place, and we spent the day, and her spirit, you know, the feel of my sister was with me that whole day in a joyous way. In a joyous way, not a sad way like, oh God, I wish she was here. It's like, oh yeah, remember how much Jill enjoyed this thing. It transitioned from the brutal loss, the thing where it's like, okay, she's gone and how sad and horrible it is, to some joyous memories and joyous influence. This person's influence is still in my life, and in a good way. So that it takes time. It takes grief.
It does.
You might have to grieve that person to get to that place. But when you do get to that place, you can then have this person, dumb, but you know, that ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi who hovers over your shoulder is still there. My sister's still there, hovering there, and the communication is one way. It's me towards her, but she's still in my life, and that's kind of my coping mechanism. Take what the Jews say, may her memory be a blessing. So you take the memory and make that memory a blessing. And in that, you can find the joy again. You don't have to live in misery the whole time.
Right. And part of my philosophizing about this, because sometimes I'm an amateur armchair philosopher too,
Sure.
is recognizing and acknowledging that loss is a natural part of life.
Right. Right.
There's nothing abnormal about loss. It's you're going to experience loss in your life.
Right.
And one of my favorite quotes from it's from The Twilight Zone, Rod Serling.
Mm-hmm.
Where he says that.
Oh, that Twilight Zone.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because there was another one.
Was there?
Yeah, they remade it twice. So see,
I don't
there
care
you go.
about that one.
Yeah, they remade it twice.
All right.
And there was a movie with John Landis.
Yes, I remember that.
So there you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Talk about loss.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Lost a head.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm talking about. I'll fill in the missing information here.
Yeah. Helicopter crash.
Gee.
Look it up, guys.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you what happened. But he said, at birth, every man is condemned to death. Time and date of execution unknown. And I just thought, wow, that is, everyone's condemned to death.
Yeah.
Time and date of execution unknown.
He was awesome.
Yeah.
He was awesome.
Still really good stuff.
Yeah. Another thing we do on our show is we do a moment of joy.
Oh.
A moment of joy.
What's something in your life that happened recently or happens occasionally that gives you joy, that that brings you up?
It's
aside from being with me.
It is. Well, I would say I could put it in two different categories. One has been consistent from day one, is spending time with my kids.
Yeah.
Always brings me joy. I get it why people say that most people say they're grandkids.
Right.
Because there's usually a schism with the kids. Mm-hmm. Not for me. My daughter lives in New York. Whenever I get to see her, it's just golden time. Right. My son lives with me. I value all the time we spend together, So on a personal level, it's that. But on a hobby level, I'm an amateur magician.
Yeah.
And magic just doing magic for people just gives me joy. I'll tell you this personal story. So I don't know how much it's because she's kind of private about it, but let me just put it like this.
Yeah.
So there was a child whose mom was sick, and I was able to show that child some magic, and she was doing a lot of acting out.
Right.
She's about 10 years old, a lot of anger and stuff like that, But magic gave her this different outlet. And Jay, it was ridiculous what it did for her.
Yeah.
And there's so much in that bucket that I'm in right now, the gratitude bucket and the inspiration bucket that magic brings me, that other parts of showbiz have never brought me that.
Do you walk around with a trick? Do you have a trick on you?
I don't, but I do perform at the Magic Castle.
Okay.
I do the close-up room there.
Right.
I'm actually in their board of directors now.
Oh, wow.
And so I have a following in magic now because I've done it since I was a kid.
Right.
But a lot of people, I never did it for a living. I always did it as a hobby.
So many people in comedy overlap in magic.
Yeah, Steve Martin was one of them.
It's very...
Yeah, Johnny Carson.
I wonder if whatever the part of the brain that it appeals to.
Comedy and music are two things that have cousins. I mean, not comedy. Magic and music have cousins with comedy, for some reasons.
Yeah, but I find there are lots of comedians who play music.
Right.
But magic, you can be shitty at singing and do it like a lousy job.
But there's something about you
can't be shitty
rhythm.
at magic.
Yeah.
You're either do the trick or you really shouldn't do the trick.
Well, the thing about magic to me, where it's like comedy, Buster Keaton was one of my favorite film comedians, of course, and I kind of liken him to why I like magic, the way that Buster Keaton's comedy worked. Like he was kind of doing magic tricks sometimes, with his...
With the camera.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, stunts.
So one of the ones that is my favorite, some people may be familiar with, where he's in this car and it stops on a train track, and he and his girlfriend get out and they're trying to push the car and it won't move. It broke down, and you cut to and the train is coming in, and they're pushing, and then right at the last minute when they think they're going to die, the train is on a different track, and it misses it. And they walk away from the car and they hug each other. And for the audience, that's hilarious.
Right.
They didn't see that coming.
Right.
They're laughing,
Right.
But that's not the joke,
Right.
of course. The joke is a different train comes from the other side, bam, and smashes the car.
Yeah.
And that's the magic trick to me.
Yeah.
Where, you're building an expectation of something, and the audience is on that ride.
Right.
But then this other train comes, and that's where the real thing is.
So we're talking about surprise.
Yes.
And surprise in comedy is really
Comedy and magic both have surprise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Comedy to me is heightening what is
Yes.
and surprise.
Right.
It's really those two things.
Yes.
It's making fun, focusing in on some
Right.
foible or human moment
Right.
in a big way that make it funny, expanded enough to make it funny, and or a surprise is coming out of another
Right.
section.
I call it truth concentrate.
Okay.
Good comedy.
Yeah. That's
Because the words are spare,
yeah.
but the truth is concentrated, and it's funny. Yeah.
My moment of joy, so I get that one, is I just visited my son in college, and he
See?
in his dorm they have this piano. And at Stanford, every dorm has its own piano.
Yeah.
And so he and a friend started singing. It was Parents' Weekend, so
Right.
started singing for some parents, and he was taking requests, and and they were taking requests, and he was forced by the parents to sing. He did it.
Right.
It was great. And what I really loved is he was doing a duet with this girl, and they were great. But he was playing piano and singing, and what he did was he modulated around her. He let her shine. You know, he did all the harmonies. He played his piano around her tastefully so that she could have those moments.
Generous performer.
Really generous, and really more like a musical director in many ways.
I was going to say, and talented enough to be able to do that.
Yeah, and it was like I would just really respect his ability to be able to do that. I love them together, and when they sang "Fly Me to the Moon," which was so great and such a great song, his piano playing mimicked the Quincy Jones arrangement of the Frank Sinatra version. I was like, oh,
did you record that?
I didn't. I had recorded a different number, but because I requested "Fly Me to the Moon," I wanted to be in it. I didn't want to be behind the camera in that moment. I've spent so many times behind the camera, one step removed from being there with my heart.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was a moment of joy. I was there to fully
Good for
accept
you.
it.
I love that.
Yeah. So that was my moment of joy.
That's awesome.
Anyway, Larry, thank you for being here. You are amazing. I look forward to going to the Dodgers with you this year.
Hey, Shohei.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna see.
Yeah.
We're gonna see if it all works out.
I mean, why wouldn't it? We have what's his name? Yamamoto, is it? Or?
It's gonna be the perfect season, right?
Oh,
the perfect season.
Come on, Dodgers.
There's no way it can go
we
wrong.
We can't do it this year. What do you want from us?
Exactly.
Why are you doing this to us?
I appreciate you. I appreciate you as a person.
Thank you, sir.
And I appreciate you as a peer.
Yeah.
Like there's not many. I really do feel
Back at you, Jay.
like I feel connected to you as a peer in a way that I don't have that many people I
appreciate
respect.
you. I've always been a fan of yours for a long time too.
All right. Well, tell your people on your podcast, for God's sakes.
I'm the person on my podcast.
Oh, okay.
There's
Okay.
else.
Fantastic. Great. Well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And thank you for listening or watching or whatever you're doing. And you must subscribe to this goddamn thing. Otherwise, to Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan. And also write in if you've got questions. I need your questions. Write into DBAWJK. That's Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan. DBAWJK@gmail.com with your questions, your comments. If you have anything to say to Larry, I'll pass it along.
More death questions, please.
Yeah. Okay. And if the whole point of the show is to be with somebody, share something with them. So if you can take a moment to share something with somebody that you might not ordinarily do it, that's cool. You should do it. You'll be better. You'll have a better life. Anyway, that's it.
I like it.
Take care.
Get out of here. Go home.
Go home. As Tracy Ullman used to say.